If you could have any superpower, what would you choose? Super strength, super speed, maybe even invisibility. When my frontal lobe was still developing, every night I'd imagine having the power to manipulate time. It's the most practical superpower ever. It is the best superpower. But then reality kicks in. Science says it doesn't work like that. Time only moves forward. At least that's what we're told. Because hidden inside a declassified CIA file, part of a real Cold War program called Stargate, which investigated psychic phenomena and other unconventional claims, is a folder of newspaper clippings about an appliance repairman from Toronto. According to those reports, this man built a machine in his basement that could freeze time. Watches would stop ticking. A police officer's handgun supposedly wouldn't fire. And if you believe some versions of the story, he even helped Israeli commandos land undetected in Uganda during one of the most famous hostage rescues in history. His name was Sid Hurwich. He never finished high school. He spent most of his life fixing appliances from his own home. By every outward appearance, he was completely ordinary. Yet decades later, people would claim he had achieved something scientists still say is impossible. Start in Toronto, sometime in the 1960s. The city is in the middle of a wave of bank robberies, specifically hitting night deposit boxes, the slots businesses used to drop off cash after the bank itself had closed for the night. At first glance, Sid Hurwich was just your ordinary, run-of-the-mill guy. He was a self-taught electronics guy with no diploma and no formal training. Just a genuine knack for wiring and machines that he'd built entirely on his own. He ran his repair business out of his house, and somewhere in that house was a basement full of spare parts, old appliances, and whatever else a lifelong thinker accumulates. According to Hurwich, reading about the robberies gave him an idea. He'd build something to protect the money, using, in his words, principles that were already well known in basic electronics. Nothing exotic, just an old idea pointed in a new direction. In 1969, he decided to prove it. He invited a couple of friends from the Toronto police force, along with some banking representatives, over to his house for a demonstration. He placed a battery-powered device under a bedspread, a literal bedspread, the kind on your bed, and switched it on. Then, he told his guests to try 3 things. Pick up the money bags they brought with them, pull the triggers on their own service revolvers, and check their watches. The bags wouldn't budge, described as impossibly heavy. The gun triggers locked solid, and when everyone checked their wrists, every watch in the room had stopped ticking. Whatever was under that bedspread, it worked. Or at least, that's what everyone in the room walked away believing. Here's the thing about demonstrations like that though. The crazier the claim, the more you're forced to trust the person behind it, which is about as reassuring as your dad saying he'll be right back after going out to buy some cigarettes. Then, Sid Hurwich told a newspaper what he says he did next. On July 4, 1976, Israeli commandos carried out Operation Entebbe, a raid that rescued 102 hostages from a hijacked plane at Entebbe airport in Uganda, evading the radar of Idi Amin's military in the process. It's still considered one of the most famous high-stakes military rescue missions in modern history. Israeli transport planes flew in at extremely low altitude, often under 100 feet, to stay beneath the radar, backed up by standard military jamming equipment for anything they couldn't simply fly under. That's the documented version. In August 1977, the Star sent a photographer named Dave Norris to Hurwich's house, and what he captured was Hurwich surrounded by wires and old appliances in his basement. It ran with a caption that still exists in the Toronto Public Library's archive today. Electronics expert Sid Hurwich invention used in Entebbe raid. He said that back in 1970, he'd sent his designs to Israel through his brother who lived there. And now, he told reporters that same device, the one that stopped watches and locked gun triggers, was the reason Ugandan radar never picked up the incoming Israeli planes. Within days, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency picked up the story and syndicated it internationally under the headline Israeli Medal for Secret Invention. Then, Foreign Report, an exclusive intelligence newsletter out of the same publishing group behind The Economist, ran with it too, describing an electronic ray that scrambled Ugandan radar installations. By December, the story had gone national. A feature in Weekend magazine, syndicated across Canada, including the Vancouver Sun, ran under the headline Israel's Secret Weapon, the Weapon X of Israel. And this is the article that took the story somewhere Hurwich himself had never quite claimed, describing his device in terms of rotating a physical frame of reference to freeze time itself. A Toronto repairman was, within a few months, behind a military rescue in the Middle East and the inventor of localized time manipulation. His synagogue, a Jewish version of the church, was reportedly preparing to give him a Protector of the State of Israel award to make it official. A basement experiment had somehow grown into an international military secret, which raises the obvious question, what did anyone find when they actually went looking for proof? Almost nothing. There's no record of any Israeli military acquisition, no mention of Hurwich, his brother, or any Canadian civilian weapon in the classified Israeli Defense Forces archives. And the tactical reality of Entebbe doesn't leave much room for a mystery ray gun anyway. The raid worked because of extremely disciplined low-altitude flying and known jamming hardware, not a repairman's basement project. What does hold up is vague to say the least. Ontario's own 1973 Public Financial Records lists a payment of just over $62,000 under the name Sidney Hurwich, solid proof that a repairman by that name really existed and ran a real business in Toronto. Beyond that, the trail runs cold fast. So where did Time Machine even come from? It's not from Hurwich. If we actually go back and read what he actually told journalists in 1977, he never once claimed to stop time. His own quote, as documented by the JTA, was that his invention was a different use for one of the oldest basic principles of electronics, and it stops bombs from going off. It was that December 1977 Weekend magazine article that took the timer stop and turned it into the time itself stopped. Everyone since has basically just been repeating a mistranslation. And you don't need physics breaking technology to explain what actually happened at that 1969 demonstration. Mechanical watches rely on a tiny oscillating balance wheel. Expose it to a strong magnetic field and eddy currents create drag that stalls it instantly. Gun triggers and hammers are ferromagnetic steel grades that exhibit strong magnetic attraction, which a powerful nearby electromagnet can clamp solid. And if those money bags had steel rings or coin rolls inside them, a hidden electromagnet under the floorboards would make them feel impossibly heavy without breaking a single law of physics. An actual localized time freeze would require a gravitational field strong enough to compress the entire city of Toronto into a subatomic atomic singularity, followed by dropping the whole room to absolute zero. Obviously, Sid Hurwich did not do that in his basement, or he would have instantly passed away. Sid Hurwich, by every indication, built a really strong electromagnet. Then there's the part of this that almost makes sense once you find it. Sid Hurwich wasn't the only Hurwich in Toronto's Jewish community with a connection to Israel. There was also a Dr. Samuel B. Hurwich, a respected Toronto physician and a national officer of the Zionist Organization of Canada, who really did serve as an official delegate to international Jewish congresses and really did receive genuine honors from Israel for his community leadership. Two men, same last name, same city. And it's not hard to see how an honor or a dinner invitation meant for one Hurwich could get pinned in memory and in print on the other. That mix-up alone accounts for an enormous amount of the story's borrowed prestige. There is one part of all this that's completely real. The CIA file. The clippings really do exist inside a declassified program called Stargate, the CIA's real Cold War project looking into psychic phenomena and unconventional weapons claims. Analysts genuinely did file away the Toronto Star and Foreign Report articles about Hurwich. During the Cold War, if a newspaper reported a mysterious ray that could jam radar and stop time, chances are someone at the CIA clipped it and moved on, just in case. Trace the story forward from there and the rest explains itself. A Brazilian physicist cited the Weekend magazine article in a 2000 paper about gravity and electromagnetism. In 2011, author David Wilcock used that same 1977 article as the basis for a chapter of his book, The Source Field Investigations. And this is the point where stopping a timing mechanism fully and finally became changing the flow of time in a local area. A 2013 book called Time Travel True Stories ran with Wilcock's version, and starting around 2015, that's the version that made it to YouTube, where it's been ever since. So the machine wasn't real, the medal was a mix-up, which leaves one question nobody in the story has really answered. What actually happened to Sid Hurwich himself? For decades, the internet's favorite ending to this story is that Sid Hurwich vanished, taken by Mossad, silenced by some government, hidden away because he knew too much. The real answer came from one of his own grandchildren. Back in 1977, his synagogue really was preparing to honor him with that Protector of the State of Israel award, a formal public dinner, the kind of event that would have made the whole story official. And then it was cancelled. The reason given publicly is that Hurwich was too ill to attend. According to his grandchild, citing Hurwich's own daughter, Sylvia, he wasn't sick at all. The family's account is that he'd allegedly taken the idea for his invention from somebody else. And with an international audience suddenly paying attention, a synagogue dinner in his honor was the last thing he could afford. So he cancelled it. There was no mysterious disappearance, no Mossad agents. He was just an aging widower. His wife had died a few years earlier, holding onto a secret that was far smaller and far more human than a machine that could stop time. Hey, if you're here, then I'm pretty much sure that you finished my video. If you will, can you drop a like and maybe subscribe to the channel, because I've been really struggling a lot lately and I would really appreciate it right now. So thank you if you ever, like or subscribe, or even consider liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it a lot. And I know the whole video is like a clickbait video, and I'm very sorry for that. And I can understand why you would, dislike this video. So yeah, I'm very sorry for wasting your time. So yeah, thanks for watching.